So, you guys remember this character? Yeah, well, there's a trope named after him. The fittingly named Scrappy refers to characters very much like Scrappy Doo, loud mouths that are annoying, arrogant, abrasive, and way overzealous for their own good. I don't think I even need to explain much more. This is a pretty widely hated trope. Trying to make a character endearingly annoying just doesn't work. Unless you make them funny as hell.
Yo, what's up?
Sup. The Scout from Team Fortress 2 is one of those characters where his gameplay basically describes his personality perfectly. Being the fastest class in the game and also the wielder of the scattergun, he's wild, he's in your face constantly, and he's ungodly annoying. And yet he's strangely tolerable. Yeah, he's arrogant, he constantly insults people, and he even brags about how awesome he is. Most of the time just to himself.
Oh man, that's beautiful.
But honestly, it's hard to be mad at him. If you actually are getting dominated by a scout, then I guess bragging is well within his rights. Also, his insults toward the other classes aren't just crazy immature, but seem to be hilariously on the nose.
Ooh, your gun shoots medicine. It's intimidating. It was a mercy killing. You live in a camper van. And next time, try 2 eyes. I am owning you, you fat, bald, fatty, fat.
Yeah, try using fat, bald, fatty, fat on someone and see if they take you even remotely seriously. It's like calling someone a poop master. Yes, the insult is attributed to them, but you're still the grown adult that called someone a poop master. That's what really makes the Scout funny, though. He's witty enough that his quips are still insulting, but he's also crude to the point where he's hard to get offended by. All in all, he's as fun in character as he is in gameplay. Kind of floating the same boat as the jerkass, the alpha bitch is a usually female character who's selfish to no end. Typically though, they're less meat-headed and more conniving, in-your-face, and petty. Very, very, very petty. Like teenage girl stereotypes amped up by 200%. Most of the time, characters centered around this trope are pretty much irredeemable. Unless you make them funny as hell. Why does that sound familiar?
So I'm afraid you're about to become the immediate past president of the Being Alive Club.
Valve, you've done it again. Yeah, GLaDOS from the Portal franchise is a very obvious choice for this trope. Maybe some characters in the Alpha Bitch trope are compelling or interesting, but there aren't many that'll leave you in stitches like GLaDOS. For the majority of the first game, she just sort of provides silly, albeit suspicious commentary as you go through the test chambers, up until the point where she ends up betraying you and you have to destroy her. The second game, though, is when GLaDOS goes full-on bitch mode. Spoiler alert here, but you know how Wheatley, the other robot companion, was specifically designed by the people at Aperture Science to be a moron? Well, are we sure they didn't try and program GLaDOS to be a child? Because programming a child is exactly what they did.
Maybe you should marry that thing since you love it so much. Do you want to marry it? Well, I won't let you. How does that feel?
Forget cheeky little digs at the main character Shell, though. At this point, she's just being mean, making fun of her for being fat or adopted. And yet she's kind of clever about it, though. With the Scout, he'd probably just call her orphan, no parents, McAdopted pants or something like that. But here's what you get with GLaDOS.
Let's give your parents a call right now.
The birth parents you are trying to reach do not love you. Please hang up.
Wow! But yeah, GLaDOS has been called one of the funniest characters in gaming, and for good reason. It's hard to even get offended at her insults because they're just so funny.
Look at you, sailing through the air majestically, like an eagle, piloting a blimp.
Ah, classic GLaDOS. I need to go on a diet. The next entry on my list is a silent protagonist. Yeah, I'm with a lot of other critics in that I don't like when a character has no personality. I get that it's for immersion purposes, but I gotta admit, most of the time, I'm not convinced. Especially if the game makes explicit reference to the fact that my character is silent. To be fair though, there are some good examples, such as when a game doesn't have dialogue, or the dialogue is simply implied. I was thinking of sticking the Kid from Bastion or Red from Transistor on here, as they each have pretty creative ways of handling a silent protagonist. They're not the ones I've singled out, though. You see, while I think there are some excusable uses of the silent protagonist, I never get the sensation that anything would be lost if the character started talking. Except in this game. What to say about Jack from BioShock? I labored for a while about whether or not I could seriously put this empty shell of a character this high on the list, and yet the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Like I said, I've never actively liked the silent protagonist trope, but BioShock sold me on it completely. Despite my calling him an empty shell a couple seconds ago, Jack isn't underdeveloped by any means. He's got layers of mystery behind him, in fact. BioShock is a game that in many ways manipulates the player into doing what it wants, which is good when the character Jack has about as much knowledge as the player when it comes to what's going on, where he is, and even who he is. Even his appearance at the time of the game is left fairly ambiguous, but what's great about him is how his actions in-game are attributed directly to the player. When the game ends up messing with Jack, especially on the twist, which I won't reveal, it becomes personal to the player, and like I said, because of BioShock's huge focus on directly manipulating the player, if Jack were silent, this effect would be ruined. You can't blame anything that happens in-game on incompetence on Jack's part, because in every way, shape, and form, Jack is the player. The only thing that kind of throws me off a little bit with Jack is that he is silent throughout the game, but in the beginning he actually does talk.
They told me. Son, you're special.
It's a little strange for me personally, but it's just a nitpick for the most part. All in all though, BioShock made one of the most effective silent protagonists I've ever seen in a game, and he's fully worthy of this spot on the list.
You were born to do great things. You know what? They were right.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't think this trope gets enough shit from people. The fragile flower may not be a trope that you've heard of, but trust me when I say that you've definitely seen it before. A fragile flower refers to a character who's ridiculously sensitive, being shy and emotional to a degree that's supposed to come off as cute. I didn't actually realize how much I hate this trope until I really started to think about it. I don't like when a character's only distinctive quality is their timidity or the fact that they cry a lot. And I especially don't like it when that kind of immaturity and irresponsibility is portrayed as being cutesy. It's because of this that I almost immediately get a bad feeling whenever I see a character like this. So you could probably imagine my reaction when I first encountered Noe from Fire Emblem Awakening. Yep, this game had to have an entry on this list eventually, as I see it as the king of doing bad tropes well. So much so that I probably could have built this entire list around the Fire Emblem Awakening cast alone. And if I did it that way, Noe would have topped the list easily, as she's my favorite character in the game. Let me make one thing clear. I thought I would hate Noe. She may not be shy, but she was loud, overbearingly emotional, and even seemingly kind of a jerk. Support conversations with her though quickly changed my mind about her, and soon enough I paired her with my avatar. The support conversations from there showed her not just to be a charming and funny character, but also kind of an admirable one. She's a goofball certainly, and she can be kind of an airhead, but she is ultimately a very dependable and responsible person. Dragon lady. You see, when you're in the middle of a giant war, you'd expect everyone to be fairly serious about it, which pretty much every other character is. Meanwhile, here's Noe getting her peace of mind by being silly and just doing whatever the fuck she wants. On the surface, it makes her look careless. That is, until you learn that she does it to keep morale up with her team. A lot of the characters go through pretty traumatic or stressful moments, and Noe sees it as her job to keep people smiling in the face of great danger or stress. Also, it's how she practices for battle, so it's a win-win for everyone. Ultimately, that's why I love the way Noe uses the trope. She's a fragile flower by all accounts, but she's pretty secure in her own ditziness. She's a pain at times, but she's empathetic, responsible, bubbly, and charming as hell.
Noe wins!
Well, we've certainly covered a lot of commonly hated character tropes. We've covered characters with no personality, obnoxious and catty jerks, useless or situational characters, and even the damsel in distress. And yet somehow we've yet to cover characters that are just flat out stupid. Characters that are just dumb as bricks and constantly get themselves and others into more trouble with their sheer incompetence. And what's more frustrating than when that ridiculously stupid character is the main protagonist? The idiot hero can often be one of the most infuriating aspects of a game. When the struggles the player finds themselves in are entirely caused by stupid decisions their player character makes without their control, it makes their endeavors feel pointless or easily preventable in retrospect, and resentment towards the player character starts to build fast. So with that being said, who's the ball of stupidity I've singled out for this entry? Well... the literal ball of stupidity, obviously. Come on, you had to have seen this one coming. Kirby from, I don't even need to say it, is one of the most endearing, hilarious, determined, and downright adorable idiots in all of gaming. He's clueless most of the time and easily deceived, but selfless and heroic. He's got a silly and squishy design, but he's badass as hell. He's stupid beyond belief, but all the more enjoyable for it. Despite all of his achievements throughout the Kirby games and all the weird, nightmarish creatures he's fought, he is a bona fide moron. Oftentimes in games when a conflict happens, he'll jump to conclusions and end up fighting the wrong person completely, or he'll be deceived by people who he thought were his allies, and oftentimes he initially ends up doing more bad than good, and yet he's a weirdly immersive character to insert yourself into. Well, Wambu, it's because you yourself are an idiot. Haha, yes, I walked into that one. But in all seriousness, Kirby starts off kind of fixated in his own little world for most of the games, so it kind of makes sense that he would be utterly clueless. And even if he ends up causing a lot of trouble throughout his journey, you gotta admire a guy that handles cosmic horrors by eating them, or by fighting them with swords 20 times bigger than himself. All in all, though, it's no wonder Kirby is such a beloved character. He's honestly the type of character you'd see as the main role in a Pixar movie. He's just that entertaining. And to take this utterly insufferable trope and turn it into one of the most lovable characters ever, that says more about the brilliance of Kirby than I ever could.